So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and check the results. At first, my dear learners, I'm trying to clarify about definition of present and infinite tense. Present indefinite tense. My dear learners, if we want to define the present infinite tense, we can say that, my dear learners, present indefinite tense is the tense which denotes an action in the present time slash habitual fact habitual fact slash historical 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 events are universal universal truth. Okay, my dear, let's have the draw. You have understood that. My dear learners, if we want to define the present and infinite tense, we can say that, my dear learners, present indefinite tense is the tense which denotes an action in the present time slash habitual factor or historical event or universal truth. Sorry, my dear learners, habitual factor or universal truth. My dear learners, now trying to show about some example. First, my dear learners, I'm trying to show some example of general use. General use. General use. We can write various kinds of sentence of general use with present indefinite tense, but only among of them only a few sentences I'm trying to write. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Oi, pray, show, Almighty Allah. We read books. You read books. Raisha reads books. Raisha learns English daily. Okay, middle. We may write versions of example with the present different tense of general use. Now I'm trying to write some habitual fact. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Hey, the chewer fact. We eat rice daily. Number two, we drink water daily. We take tea daily. Man lives in society. Society. We work in the morning daily. Okay, but that's substance of what kinds of example may be given about habitual fact. Habitual fact. My dear learners, and now I'm trying to give you some example of historical events. Historical events. So, Medina, let's take a look at the board and try to understand. Historical event means what? Of course, you know that, Medina. There are some events occurred in the past which is included in history, which is called historical event. But you have to mind that all categories of historical events will have to write in present indefinite tense. Present indefinite tense. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand historical events. Number one, Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is our greatest prophet. Nazrul Islam is our national fight. Next, number three, Mother Teresa is famous for her humanity, humanity, and Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore is our world fight. Is our world fight. Is Ishar Ishar Chandra Ishar Chandra Vidya Sagar is famous for his kindness. Such kinds of example, various kinds of example may be given regarding historical events, but you will have to mind that, my dear learners, the event which is called historical, and if you are told to write, you have to write with present indefinite tense. Present indefinite tense. That you have understood clearly, my dear learners. Now I'm trying to write some examples. The regard of universal truth. Universal truth. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Universal truth. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, universal truth means eternal truth, which is very truth after creation of this world. After creation of this world. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Number one, man is mortal. Number two, honesty is the best policy. Honesty is the best policy. Next, eyes flowers on water. Money brings money. Money brings money. Walking is the best exercise. Okay, then let's. If you are told to write any sentence of any section to the mind that the learners left to write a sentence of a sentence or statement of any verse in present indefinite terms. Indefinite terms of the you have the understood value. My dear learners, now I'm trying to show you about various kinds or types of structures of present infinite terms. You have to mind that, my dear learners, there are five categories of structures of present infinite terms. And among various kinds of structures, five categories of structures. At first, I'm trying to show you about structure number one. Structure number one. You have to mind that, my dear learners. Structure number one is called affirmative. Affirmative structure. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, when you are going to form any affirmative sentence with present indefinite tense, my dear learners, you have to write down the structure. You have to write down the structure. At first, you have to use subject. Next, you'll have to write down V1 form of verbs. Of course, sometimes maybe added as case with verb at the case of third person singular number. And you'll have to mind that, my dear learners, if any subject is third person and singular number, you'll have to add s oblique s with their V1. Next, object. Next, extension. Next, full stop. Okay, my dear learners, you have to mind that, my dear learners, there are five types of structures of present infinite tense, and among five categories of structures, the structure number one is called affirmative structure. Structure. You have to mind that, my dear learners, when you are going to form an affirmative sentence, you have to use this structure. So, my dear learners, try to remind and try to say instantly. Subject plus V1. Sometimes maybe added s oblique s with verb at the case of subject third person and singular number. Three, three object, four extension, and finally you have to use the notes of full stop. The notes of full stop of the you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now I'm trying to give some example referring these structures. My dear learners, look at the board and try to understand. We go to school Chile. We plan cricket every day. The man seldom smokes. Rachel learns English daily. We drink water daily. Okay, maybe and I have written five categories of example to clarify about this. My dear learners, look at this board and try to understand these five categories of sentence. At first, subject. We demand rights away. But after subject, we'll have to use V1 form of verb. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, there are various kinds of form of verbs. There are five categories of form of verbs. Of course, you know that V1, V2, V3, V4 and V5. You had shown in my previous classes. You have to mind that, my dear learners. There are mainly form of a verb is three: V1, V2, and V3. Suppose go, V2 went, V1 gone, V4 goes, V5 going. Of course, you are shown in my previous classes. My dear learners, next V1 form of verb fly, V2 form of fly, flight, V3 flight, V4 flies, and V5 flying. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. In my previous class, I was trying to show you about various kinds of form of verb, and in my next few class, inshallah, I'm trying to make various kinds of video with various kinds of form of a verb. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. And from here, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners, if any sentence possessed some present indicator words such as daily, daily, every day, seldom, daily, daily, sometimes, now and then, occasionally, normally, generally, often, very often, such kinds of words, if any sentence possessed, you'll have to solve various kinds of sentence with present indefinite tense. Of course, you know that, man, dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. Thank you very much, my dear learners. Now, I'm trying to show you about structure number two. You have to mind that, my dear learners, structure number two is called negative structure. Structure number two is called negative structure. Okay, my dear learners. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand negative structure. Okay, my dear learners, and you have to mind that, my dear learners, when you are going to form various kinds of sentence of the sense of negation, you'll have to use this structure. What the structure? Look at the board and try to understand. At first, you'll have to use subject. Then, secondly, you'll have to use don't, oblique, doesn't, plus v1 plus object plus extension plus full stop. Okay, my dear learners, you have to mind that, my dear learners, when you are going to form various kinds of sentence of negative sentence, you have to use this structure. At first, I may give some example to clarify about this structure. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. At first, we have to use subject. We, I, them, Raisha, Ria Mune. Okay, middle that's a subject. At first, I wrote subject. At this moment, my dear learners, I'm trying to form 5 sentences with this structure. Then you'll have to use don't oblique doesn't. Don't oblique doesn't. You'll have to mind that, my dear learners, at the case of third person singular number, you'll have to use doesn't. You'll have to use doesn't. So, my dear learners, write down doesn't, doesn't. But except that person singular number, in all cases we'll have to use don't. We'll have to use don't. So don't, don't, don't. Now write v1 form of verb, any verb. Suppose I write take, then object, she, extension, delete, finally full stop. My dear learners, second sentence, I don't go to school. Chile. Next, they don't play cricket. Chile. Next, number 4, my dear learners, rice doesn't one beyond form of our cook, object rise regularly. Next, Riamoni doesn't make cheap jelly. Okay, my dear learners. In from this, you have to mind that, my dear learners, structure number two is called of negative structure. Negative structures, and when you are going to form various kinds of negative sentences, you'll have to use these structures such as subject plus don't object doesn't plus v1 form of verb plus object plus extension plus full stop object. You have understood clearly. So now I'm trying to clarify about structure number three. About structure number three, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners, every tense has five categories of structure. Structure number one is called affirmative structure. Structure number two is called and negative structure, and structure number three is called interrogative structure. Interrogative, interrogative structure. My dear learners, you have to mind that, my dear learners, when you are going to form an interrogative sentence, you have to use this structure. My dear learners, at the time of forming an interrogative sentence with present indefinite tense, you have to use first do oblique does, then secondly you have to use subject, thirdly you will have to beyond form of verb, and then object, then extension, then question mark. Okay, maybe that's when you are going to form an interrogative sentence, you will have to use this structure that you have understood clearly, my dear learners. Now I'm trying to give some examples, the reference of this structure, my dear learners. So write down five sentences. Do, 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 does, we, I, sorry, you, third person, singular number, Raisha, swipe. Okay, my dear learners, you have to mind that, my dear learners, at the case of first person. Now, your question to me, what's first one? You have to mind that, my dear learners, there are some words used in a sentence. You can see that are used as like a subject and object, sometimes possessive. There are some words which are used in a sentence as like it's a subject and object or a possessive. Such kinds of words we can call person. And this person we can classify into three ways: first person, second person, and third person. You have to mind that, my dear learners, first two categories of subject, I and we, are called first persons, and subject you is called second person, and except I, we and you. You'll have to mind that, my dear learners, except I, we, and you. All categories of subjects are third person. You'll have to mind that, my dear learners. I'm trying to clarify about person. Shortly, in a simple way, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners. I, we, first person, you, second person, and etc. I, we, and you. All categories of subject, personal, maybe personal or non-personal, of course, third person. And this third person has two categories, two forms. So like as a singular number and plural number, singular number and plural number. At the case of third person and singular number, we'll have to use does, use does, except the third person singular number. In all cases of subject, you'll have to use do. Of that, you have understood clearly. Do we want to go to school daily? Do I teach you English daily? Do you learn English delay. Does Raisa learn English delay? Does wife go to school delay? Okay, maybe let's such kinds or categories of various kinds of exam may be given with the difference of the structures. Of course, you know that of that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now I'm trying to show you about structure number four. You'll have to mind that, my dear learners, every trans has five categories of structure. Structure number one is called affirmative structure. Structure number two is called negative structure, and structure number three is called interrogative, and structure number four is called interrogative negative. Interrogative negative structure. Interrogative negative structure. Okay, my dear friends, at the time of forming an interrogative negative structure, especially with present indefinite tense, you will have to use John or doesn't first before subject. My dear learners, when you are going to make a sentence of interrogative and negative, you'll have to use this structure. What is the structure? The structure is that don't slash doesn't plus subject plus v1 form of verbs plus objective plus extension plus question mark. Now I'm trying to give some example about this with the reference of the structure, my dear learners. One, two, three, four, and five. John 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 doesn't doesn't. Now I'm trying to write some subject. Suppose I, you, Raisa, swipe. Then, my dear learners, I'm trying to bring some real form of verb. Suppose check, object, check, extension, chile, question mark. Okay, my dear learners, don't I be one form of verb? Suppose teach, object you, English, chile. Okay, then let's next try to form the example number three. Don't you learn English Chile? Learn English Chile. At the case of example number five, doesn't swipe V1 form of verb speak in English Chile. Okay, my dearness, of that you have understood clearly. My dearness, already I have finished structure number four. Now I'm trying to write structure number five. Of course, you know that what is the name of structure number five, and but just I'm trying to cover it you. My dearness, you'll have to mind that structure number five is called WA's question structure. W is question structure. My dear learners, you'll have to mind that when you are going to form a sentence with W is question, you'll have to use this structure, especially in present indefinite tense. And when you are going to form such kinds of sentence, you have to use this structure. At first, you'll have to write down the specific WS question, then maybe written structure number three, which we can call interrogative structure, or structure number four, which is called interrogative negative structure. Okay, learners, hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, when you are going to form a sentence with WH word, you have to use this structure, especially at the case of present indefinite tense. Suppose with the reference of this structure, I'm trying to write some example. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Why, watch, where, when, and number five, we will write out. Okay, my dear nerds, of course, you know that what's the meaning of such categories of sentence? Why, what, where, when, how. How. Then I'll have to use structure number three or four. If I write structure number three, I'll have to use do oblique. I wrote do, do, do. In every case, I wrote do. Then and I use subject you, you. Then I will write beyond form of verb. Why do you beyond form of verb learn English daily? Okay, my learners. Why do you learn English daily? Why do you go to school daily? Or where do you live? Where do you live? When do you go to bed daily? Next, number five. How do you learn English daily? Such kinds of various of examples may be given with the reference of the structure. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. So, my dear learners, you have to mind that, my dear learners, when you are going to form any sentence or ask any sentence, especially this category of structure is used at the case of spoken. At the case of spoken, when you are going to ask anybody with about anything with WS question, you may use this structure. Structure number five, WS structure, which you can call WS structure. Of that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, I don't want to learn in today's class, but before finishing today's class, I want to share some information with you, my dear learners. Of course, you know that I'm a new tutor or new teacher in YouTube channel, but my dear learners, in spite of my being very JC, I'm trying to use English conversation at the time of making a various kinds of video classes. So, my dear learners, if you notice any faults or mistakes in the middle of my video classes, please excuse me and please always for me so that I can help you. I can cooperate you with my various kinds of my video classes throughout my life. So, my dear learners, no more today. Come to see you again with a new arrangement training class about the various kinds of tenses. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.